All right, Grand Rising. It is still morning here in Texas, and peace, power, and love is always in greeting. Um, if you're liking the content, smash up the likes, hit the subscribe button. You can share the videos. Much appreciated. I want to thank my few subscribers that I have thus far and hope to get more on board. I also want to welcome my activatemedia.org family out of Boston, Mass. Um, just wanted to jump on here today and talk about something that I really don't talk about much, but I just want to address it today. For those of you who don't know, I've lost a child to gunplay. Um, He was 18 years old. He passed in 2008, February of 2008. Um, and some things, you never forget. Um, you do get better, you do heal from those things, but you never forget them. And I'm here to talk about, the gun violence that's plaguing our community. I want to give a heartfelt condolence to one of my comrades who lost her son on last Saturday. Um, Young man Keith Slaughter II, and he was shot and murdered in Little Lamb, not even in a confrontation with anybody. From what the news reports have said, he didn't know the shooters. Just one of those random things when you have idiots with guns, and no type of regard for life, just recklessly shooting. And anybody can fall victim to incidents like that. Um, it's bothersome that this particular situation is so very prevalent within our communities. We It's like we're going backwards as a people, and this is why I say that our children need us, because there are so much better ways to um, resolve problems and to resolve disagreements. When I was growing up, just take you back a few years, um, there there were shootings, when we were growing up, but they were few and far between. I can remember in my childhood and growing up in the East Texas town that I grew up in, I want to say I can count on my hands from the time I was, school age to the time I graduated. I can count on my hands how many incidents, uh, disagreements that happened that involved guns. You know, um, there were maybe a couple of instances where guns were brought into a situation and people lost their lives, but back then, we didn't have ready access to firearms. Now, I'm not going to say that there were not firearms within within my household or, any of my peers' households. But we knew better, for one, to, mess with mom or dad's firearm, and then, you know, in my day and time, a disagreement didn't mean death. A disagreement, you're going to fight. You might fight the next day, you might fight all week, but you live to see another day, and I know that we've heard that said over and over again, but it seems like the violence within our communities is continuing to escalate. And in the situation with the young man, um, Keith Slaughter, is a senseless act. And now, I'm a member of this club, the Parents Who Have Lost a Child Club, and I didn't ask to be a member, didn't want to be a member. It's something that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. And I am very sympathetic and empathetic to all parents who have lost a child. Um, doesn't matter the age, it's still the loss of a child, and it's such an unnatural thing to experience. It's just an unnatural act in itself because, in all reality, parents usually succumb before the child. And just like in my situation, with my son, who I was able to enjoy for 18 years before the tragedy happened with him. Um, and it's just something that you know that can happen, but it's something that you don't ever expect to happen. Um, and when it does, it's devastating. And I don't care if it's the death was caused by a sickness or whatever. It's just unnatural, and those are things that, even in cases where, a child may be sick and may be terminally sick, and you have time to plan, but no amount of planning will ever make you prepared for the loss of a child and for the loss of anyone, uh, for that matter. Um, but losing a child, you lose, and I've said this, on several of my podcasts, and I've said this several times in conversation with people, when we lose our children, we lose a whole lineage, because that child will never have a child. That child's, um, you know, um, child, or what would have been child, won't ever, the lineage stops, you know, like with my son, he didn't have any children. So uh, that lineage, that part of my bloodline stopped, 15 and a half years ago. And like I say, when we lose a child like that, we lose a whole lineage. My child won't have a child, his child won't have a child, and so on and so on and so on. Those things never come into existence. So we don't own, we not only lose that child, we lose that child's lineage, his generation, and that always is in the back of your mind, and even having lost him 15 and a half years ago. February will make 16 years. It's still days that maybe a song will come on that he would play or that he liked, or one of his friends may pop up, and it just brings back those memories because, like I say, yeah, you heal from it, and the healing process is different for everyone. The grieving process is different for everyone. When I lost Darius, I was lost. I'm not even gonna lie. I was totally lost, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know which way to go, and I drank. I drank. And it was like I couldn't get drunk. No matter how much I drank, no matter how much weed I would smoke, I couldn't get high. I couldn't get drunk. I was really in a bad headspace and really numb to life. Uh, Losing him in the beginning made me want to give up on life. And mind you, I had a daughter at the time, um, that needed me as well. And I wasn't thinking about that. I was real selfish minded in my grieving. I did things that I shouldn't have been doing, um, experimenting with self medicating, and self medicating in hopes to remove myself from here. The depression was real. The suicidal thoughts were real. Um, and like I say, it's a real process, and it takes a whole lot to mentally process it. And in the beginning, is you're really unable to process it. Like with me, I was really unable to process him being gone. There were days right after the incident happened when I still wanted to pick up the phone and call him. I was wishing for that one last talk. Those things that we do when we lose someone, not just a child, but when we lose someone, we always wish we had that one last talk, that one last laugh, that one last time together, Um, but in some cases, those, it just it doesn't ever seem to work out that way. It doesn't ever seem to work out in a way where we can have total closure. And when you lose a child in a violent nature and you really don't have the answers, you're searching for the answers, the reason why, and then you always think about the what ifs. Um, and no matter what it is that we think we could have done to change that situation, there's nothing we could have done. On February 18th, 2008, no, on February 18th, 2000 and yeah, 8 was Darius's appointed time. So no matter had where he was, the time was already allotted. And like I say, I think I often would sit around and think about what I could have done to maybe stopped it from happening. But in all reality, we have to realize that the Most High is in control, that the Most High doesn't make mistakes. And I was in a mind state of why my son, you know, um, why take my son? You already took his mother from me 10 days after he was born. Why take him from me 18 years later? And that bothered me for a while. But you the healing process is something that gradually starts to take place. And in my circumstance, um, the healing process, I will say, took every bit of 8 to 9 years before I could talk about him without becoming emotional, um, where I could talk with others about him without becoming emotional. And this is why too I say we need each other. Because see, I've been through the loss of a child. So my going through that loss and through that tragedy, it led me to reach out to others, um, not who have just lost a child, but who has lost a loved one. Uh, period. Whether it be a sister, a mom, a dad, but it just led me to be more compassionate, more empathetic, and I actually started writing poetry more. And I have done a lot of poems that I wrote for homegoings, for friends, for family. Uh, I've even written some for people that I didn't know on a personal level. I didn't have a personal relationship with, but grief is grief. Pain is pain. And what I try to do is just put myself in their shoes and try to say the right words that will provide some sort of comfort, if only for a moment, but will provide some sort of comfort to that family. And that truly um, helped me through my grieving process, and it helped me to uh, understand and to grow. Uh, and like I say, this particular club, nobody wants to bury their child. With my son, heck, I was, not an old man, but his dad. And so, he was the oldest child. And I would tell him all the time the things that I wanted as far as when I passed away. And, you know, uh, never thinking that he would leave before I did. Those are things, like I say, that we just don't fathom as parents, and things that we kind of keep in the back of our mind because we don't ever really want to experience that. And like I say, I am empathetic to any parent and all parents who have had to bury a child. And to our brothers, I say, I always talk about how we're needed, black men, and you look at the condition of our young black men, our teenage boys, even so quick to weaponize. Back in the day, this was the only weapon that we had. Now, yeah, it might have had a pocket knife, but as far as having access to firearms like these young men have access to firearms today. And then I think, I can think back when I was 16, 15, and you get mad, you want to fight. Well, if you got a gun, you're not going to fight. And if you have a gun, you're not going to take much off of anybody. If somebody's bothering you, you're going to remedy that situation. And if you have a firearm, it simplifies it. And I say this to our black men: we have got to get back into our young men's lives. We have got to definitely tell them and show them that there are other ways to go besides the gun. Death is a promise to all of us, but don't shorten your life and don't shorten anybody else's life. It's so easy to just sit down and talk about a problem. Not every issue requires physicality. Not every issue requires a fight. And we have got to teach our young men that life is not only short, but valuable. And all the lives that we have lost, like with my son, who knows what he would be doing today. And I often wonder, at 34 years old, because he just had a birthday on yesterday. I was born on the 16th of October, and 9 days later, he came into my life in 1989. That was my birthday present. His mother would ask me what I wanted, and I said, just a healthy baby boy. And that's what I got. And that's what I had. Um, and, like I say, we have got to stay active in our young men's lives, and even active in those young men who are outside your biological family, because not every child has a dad. We all know how society is nowadays, and there are a lot of single mothers. And I'm not saying that single mothers can't raise a man, but single mothers can't raise a man. There are lessons and things that that young man will go through that a woman has no knowledge of. And this is why I say it is important that we, as the black men, stay involved, especially with your sons, your daughters too, but your sons. Show them how to be a man, a respectable man. Show them how to be a man, because having a fight or shooting somebody doesn't make you a man. Using this and using this is what makes you a man. And I think that society has fooled us into thinking that a real man is, you gotta be bullish. You gotta be, headstrong. And there's nothing wrong with a man being emotional. There's nothing wrong with a man thinking. We have got to redefine what manhood is. And we have also got to redefine what makes a man. And just because you have a gun, it doesn't make you a man. I have guns. Doesn't make me a man. We got to teach our children to responsibility. If you're going to have firearms in the home, educate your children about firearms. Explain to your children about firearms and when not to use them. Because to me, a firearm is has two purposes: to defend yourself or to put food on the table. And to me, those are the only two reasons, you know, to brandish your weapon. If you're hunting for food, of course, yeah, okay. If someone is breaking into your property, yes, okay. But in the situation with this young man, Keith Slaughter, just a random shooting, not even knowing the shooters. And this is the case in so many instances where, you know, innocent people are just standing around enjoying themselves, enjoying the night, enjoying the atmosphere and wherever they are gathered, and all it takes is one jackass to pull out a gun and start shooting, and everything's over. Everything ends, and then not only that, there is a possibility that you have injured people. You have taken lives for no reason because you get mad at somebody, and instead of working the problem out, you pull your weapon. Prime example, I mean, and this was a TV show, but two young men squared up to fight. This one guy had been bullying this other kid, so the kid that had been bullied took boxing lessons. So the next time when this bully showed up, well, the boy had a different type of confidence about himself. He had been learning the skill of boxing. So when the bully showed up, he two-pieced the bully. And what happens? Nobody, and I say this too, this generation that we live in would not have made it in my day because y'all don't like to take ass whoopings. You cannot win them all. You can't win them all. And a fair fight is a fair fight. And there is no reason nor purpose to bring a weapon into a fair fight. And then what do? We lose a life, and then the culprit, the shooter, he's gone. So we lose two young men. You know, one's no longer with us, and the other one is facing jail time. You know, or possibly a death sentence. You know, just depends on how severe the case is. You know, and I've saw so in so many instances where you have these gun-toting block boys that, you know, get in their feelings, get mad about somebody, you know, girls, you know, and that's another thing. You dating somebody else starts dating them, and you're upset about it. And there's been so many incidents where that has been the case, you know, and you go and you tool up so that you can go and approach someone and take someone out. Life is so much more than we give it. You know, we don't give life the value that it is really worth. And this is why I say, like I say, black men, we have got to get involved with our young black men. We've got to get involved. We've got to teach them a different way. We've got to show them that there are other ways to handle problems as opposed other than picking up a gun. Like I say, hey, put the gloves on, get in the ring. You both live. Nobody passes away, nobody goes to jail. Somebody may take an ass whooping, but you live to see the next day. A swollen eye doesn't last forever. A busted lip doesn't last forever. I've had swollen eyes, I've had busted lips. I'm still here though. And this is my point. We have got to teach our children that life is more important than anything else. And our children are the most valuable possessions that we have. So, with that being said, it's time for us as the adults to step our game up. And like I say, we have got to start doing better than we're doing. We've got to give our children the ability to have hopes and dreams again. We have got to teach our children that we are all we got. We have got to teach our children that even though he may not be your biological brother, he's your brother. He has a mother at home that looks like your mother. He has a father at home that looks like your father. Sister, brother that looks like your sister and brother. So we have got to teach our children to love, respect, and care for one another, and put the guns down. Like I say, if it's that bad of a disagreement, put the gloves on. Go to a gym, put the gloves on, box it out. Better yet, find your spot in your backyard, put the gloves on, fight it out. You live. You live. And you need it. We need you younger people doing the right things. And that has a lot to do with us as well. I'm not just trying to point out and point fingers at the younger generation. That's the last thing that I'm trying to do. But what I am trying to do is inspire you and encourage you to just do better, to do different, to respect those that look like you, because nobody respects us. And it's kind of cold when your own people don't respect you. So we have definitely got a job to do, and we can bring back into existence the communities that we want. We can bring back into existence, or we can bring into existence the peace that we desire. But we can't be fearful of our young people. And yeah, they're a whole different generation than when I was a kid. But then you look at society now, and you look at society when I was a kid, and I'm not saying that things that exist now didn't exist then, but some things were, people worked harder to keep under wraps. You know, I think about this generation and how this system and how society is really uh, promoting this LGBTQ agenda, and I'm against it. I don't knock anybody for what they do, but let our children be children. Our children, some of our children have to grow up at 10 years old because they may not have a father in the house. And then they may have a mother that works 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. So that makes a child grow up faster than he should. And it subjects a child to a more adult uh, lifestyle because he has more responsibility at 10 than some have at 18. He's gone through some things at 10 that some people don't go through in 18 years of childhood. So some of our children are subjected to different environments, and that matters. That makes a difference. And that's why I say we, as the adults, we've got to make sure our children are all right, make sure they're okay mentally, make sure they're okay spiritually, physically. And then, like I say, we have got to be the providers of options. We have got to be the ones to give them the ability to dream again, to have hopes of being somebody other than a basketball player, football player, or a rapper. Because we're so much more than that. And we got enough athletes, we got enough rappers. It's time for us to do something else. It's time for us to go to the next level. It's time for us to instill in our children the true intellect that they have and where they come from. And then they'll have a better understanding of their intellect. Then they may even have a better understanding of their condition. Because we have really got to change this condition. We've got to stop doing the things that we're doing now, unlearn and relearn. And then when we start pushing the proper agenda, our children will see that. Our children will be more accepting of that. When our children see us doing different, they'll want to do different, because a lot of times our children emulate us and the things that they see, and the things that they see is violence all over the TVs, violence on these video games, violence in the music. So how do we expect our children not to pick up the violence tendencies? We have got to monitor our children. And I'm not saying, lock them down, keep them on lockdown, but we've got to be more involved in what it is that they do. We've got to be more involved in their online activities. We've got to be more involved in their extracurricular activities and just their activities, period. The things, them getting involved in just conversing, having that open dialogue with your child. And I think that's something that we're losing. And a lot of us will text as opposed to sitting and talking to somebody who's in the same house. You're texting and back and forth. Nothing replaces face to face conversation. Nothing replaces the social ability. And that's what we've gotten away from. We're not social among one another. We don't talk amongst one another now. Everybody's online all the time. And when we do have something to say, it's on Facebook or it's on Instagram. People don't socialize anymore. And we have really got to unlearn that. And we need to get back to what we need: family, each other. And then we can have more control in our families. We can have more control in our communities. And then, like I say, when our children see this, they'll not only see it, they'll feel the difference. And then maybe they'll do different, because there is nothing wrong with being different. And I think a lot of times children shy away from being who they really are because they don't want to be looked at in a certain way as the nerd or, the smart guy. There's nothing wrong with being smart. Education is gold. Education, more education is really what we need. More truth in education is what we need. And that's why I say it's really time for us to get our house in order. We need to be a lot more involved with our youth. We got to stop this madness, this unnecessary violence that's plaguing our communities more than any other community. And I don't really talk about this a lot, but in light of what happened in um, Sister Natalie's life, I'm compassionate. I'm empathetic to her because I know what she's feeling. I'm not going to say I know what she's feeling. She's a mother. I'm a father. The love that a father has is different than the love a mother has, but it's still love. A father just loves a little harder than a mother. A mother loves more, uh, more of a gentle manner, whereas a father's love is hard. You know, you're gonna do this, and I don't care how you feel. You know, that's just men. That's just how we do. But the combination of both is what's needed. So we as the parents, even if you're not together, we still have a child to raise. And keeping a child from another parent, that don't help the situation none either, because all that does is hurts the child. You think you're doing something to hurt that other grown person, but you're really hurting the child, because what you're doing is limiting that child's ability to build a relationship with the other side of his family. And I understand, you know, you may punish your child for doing things, but don't punish your child from the other parent. That's unnecessary and uncalled for and very selfish on the custodial parent's part. See, we got to get our shit together and learn how to be who we need to be so that our children can be who they are supposed to be and who they can be. We're better than the gun violence. And once again, I just send out my condolences to Sister Natalie and her family. Um, I mean, I'm just tired of saying hashtags, tired of saying names of all the young men and women that we're losing senselessly to violence. Something that can be fixed, something that can be corrected. It's up to us. That's all I got. And like I say, if y'all are liking the content, uh, you know, hit the like button, subscribe, uh, press that bell to join. That way, when I do drop videos, you'll be the first to know. Um, like I always say in closing, y'all, let's plan, let's organize, let's unify, because we all have a key right here and right here. Love y'all. I'm out. Peace, power, and love.